Back in the 80s and 90s, Celtic's video content wasn't on YouTube and social media. It was released on these space-consuming blocks of plastic, the VHS home video. In 1991, Celtic's chief executive Terry Cassidy released the Celtic Collection, a quarterly video magazine.
Hello and welcome to another first from Celtic. From the club that introduced the first weekly club newspaper in British football, we present the first regular video magazine, the Celtic Collection. They used to talk about the closed season in football, but Celtic Park was very much open for business right through the summer of '91.
Everything about that intro screamed 1990s. The game show theme tune, Paul Cooney's desk with the telephone that will never ring. So where was Celtic at this point? The chief executive Terry Cassidy had just sacked Billy McNeill and he had replaced him with the rookie manager Liam Brady.
Liam, how does it feel to be the manager of Celtic?
Tremendous. I'm very, very proud and very, very honoured, and I'm really looking forward to my new job.
You said though at one point that you wouldn't be interested in football management. How many jobs would you have taken?
Well, that's impossible to say. You know, unless you're offered, you can't really say. But let's say yes. I wasn't really interested in football management because I felt if I was going to start in it, I would have to start at the bottom levels and work my way up. But life plays funny tricks, and here I am. You know, coming in at the very top. And I think to myself, if I'm going to fail, well, you might as well fail at the top. But I'm not saying that. That's going to be the case. I'm very confident that I'm going to bring success here to Celtic Park.
How much do you know about the traditions of Celtic? As a boy, for example, in Dublin, were you aware of this Glasgow giant?
Absolutely. There's Man United, there's Liverpool, and there's Celtic in Dublin. Not necessarily in that order. The 1967 team, Lisbon Lions, that was when I was really becoming interested in football. I was 11, 12, my most formative time thinking about football. And well, I never really followed anyone in particular, but I always followed players. And you know, in that team, Bertie Auld and Jimmy Johnson, very special.
There's a great family atmosphere here at Celtic Park, and they've always enjoyed the attacking football that was the hallmark of your play. Distinguished creative football. Is that what you hope to bring back to Celtic?
I know what the traditions are here, and I will try to live up to them. I think when the board appointed me, they knew what kind of football I believe in, and they think it's going to be acceptable by the people who come here to watch Celtic.
Looking back at this early interview with Liam Brady, it's clear that even he was surprised that he got the Celtic job. And what about those prophetic words? If you're going to fail, you might as well fail at the top.
Liam Brady, well aware of the traditions of Celtic and looking forward to the task of managing the club. Well, within days, the players were back to Celtic Park for training. And the first stop was Strathclyde Park. Under the watchful eye of a man introduced to Scottish football by Liam Brady, the new first-team coach, a former Irish international player, Mick Martin.
17, 16, Plucky, what number are you? 4, 5, 7, what's this up turning? 8, 9, Jack, Queen, 10, 11, header, volley. My fault. Header. Wally. Let's walk on. Let's go.
I like to have a bit of a laugh, and I like to have a bit of fun, and I like to see them with a smile on their face, and I wind them up. And if they step out of line, I come down on them. But none of them have stepped out of line yet, so I haven't had the opportunity to be hard.
On the deck. Scotty.
Although you've done it for maybe 10 years or something, it still holds maybe the worst moment of the season, your first day at training. But it's something, once you're by the first day, you know, it's just a cruise from there.
Now, you just had your first meeting, I take it, with the new manager, Liam Brady. What were your first impressions?
He spoke very confidently, and he's a great player, and hopefully he'll be able to take all the experience he had as a player into his manager's job.
Do you think the actual preparation for the season will change given the amount of experience he had in Italian football? Is he likely to introduce some ideas into the Scottish game here?
Yes, I hope so, yeah. As I said, he's had a lot of experience abroad playing, and hopefully he can help all of the players at Parkhead at the moment to go from strength to strength, and hopefully play with a lot more confidence this year, and maybe get a steady rhythm through this season, maybe something we're lacking the last couple of years.
Football back in the 90s seemed far more innocent. I mean, you could walk along to Strathclyde Park and see your Celtic heroes, guys like Dougie McCarrison, John Hewitt and Martin Hayes, training. When I look back on the training regime, it looks very basic, but how cool is the Umbro training kit? Soon to be added to that Celtic squad was a £1.1 million Irish striker Tony Cascarino, who was signed from Aston Villa. This was at a time when we already had 5 strikers: Charlie Nicholas, Darius Jakinowski, Jerry Craney, Andy Walker and Tommy Coyne.
Some people calling you Tommy O'Coyne over here in Ireland. There's been a lot in the Irish papers and television and radio that you could be playing for Jack Charlton's team. How would you feel about it? Would you rather play for Scotland or Ireland?
I don't have any preference, to be honest, Paul. I would be delighted whoever asks me, if I get asked. It's nice to read a paper and people are putting you in that bracket, but you've just got to wait and see if they manage your picture.
A lot of people have got an awful lot of respect for you, particularly since you took a lot of stick, you took a lot of criticism a year or so ago in the newspapers and television and radio at home. How did you feel about that?
I think that's just par for the course with a job. I think if you're not doing well, you've got to expect to get some criticism, maybe undue in some parts, but you've just got to accept it and maybe have the last laugh when things go good.
You think you'll be having the last laugh this season?
I hope so, yeah. I'll be trying my best anyway.
Pre-season meant a trip to Ireland, and there was familiar faces in the dugout with the new management team, with Brian Scott, Jimmy Steele, Neely Mockin and also Tommy Craig. Unfortunately for Liam Brady, Paul McStay, Celtic's captain and maestro, was injured in that pre-season trip to Ireland, and the captaincy was handed to Charlie Nicholas. Despite an injury to our talismanic captain, there was still confidence in the Celtic camp, as Peter Grant explained.
Yeah, a good start last weekend. We've let ourselves down in the second game against Cork. We were very disappointing, but I think we bounced back a wee bit last night. OK, it was a very, very difficult game, and Dundalk never wanted to play in the game, but we've enjoyed it. The boys have enjoyed the break. We've got together again. We've got a good team spirit, and that's what we're aiming for, and hopefully we carry on into the season.
After the pre-season tour of Ireland, we went down to Highbury and drew 2-2 with Arsenal in the Paul Davis testimonial, before coming up to Celtic Park for Liam Brady's first game in charge at Paradise, where we beat the FA Cup holders 1-0. Liam Brady's first game in charge at Celtic Park gave this video collection an opportunity to get behind the scenes, get into the dressing room and speak to some of the people who weren't involved in the game against Spurs. And I think this is where the video collection comes into its own. You get the behind the scenes stuff, the stuff behind the curtain that you don't often see as a Celtic fan.
Derek, you must hate to be out today for this match. You picked up a knock on Tuesday.
Yeah, at first I thought it was a stress fracture. Fortunately for me, it was just a bad bruising in my shin. And to play against the Cup winners in England would be tremendous. The pitch was looking great and a big crowd, so disappointed I'm missing it.
Of course, you watched Spurs last week in Ireland.
Yeah, watched them against Shelbourne. We beat Shelbourne 3-0. I don't think we'll have any problems beating Spurs today here.
The Celtic Collection will show you behind the scenes at Celtic Park. Here's a unique insight into the dressing room just minutes before kick-off. Liam Brady, Mick Martin and Tommy Craig have last-minute preparations, with Liam and Tommy laying out exactly how the team will line up against the English FA Cup holders.
Come on. Start cheering in, come on. Very much. I thought it was quite a good game, a lot of good football played. Should have been 1 or 2 more goals. I missed one, but I missed them before, so I don't worry too much about that. But that was entertaining. The crowd were in good spirits, and I would think everybody enjoyed it.
It's interesting watching you and Packy Bonner up against each other again. You've played against each other so often in different circumstances for your countries.
That's right. I've never played. It's the first time I actually ever played against Celtic, be it here or be it anywhere. It's my first visit here. I've usually played Packy, of course, when he's been playing for the Republic, and we've had a few battles there. But he's one of the best goalkeepers around. He's very dependable, and he made 1 or 2 good saves again today.
The collection did well to balance the game footage with interviews and behind the scenes footage, and it seemed to be well received by fans, as the reviews and the fanzines at the time would attest. Something, however, that got more of a mixed reaction from the supporters was the new away kit by Umbro, complete with its red, white and blue sponsor.
A scarf and a tammy. That was all the fan needed in the 50s and the 60s and maybe even the 70s. But in the 80s and now in the 90s, an essential part of the kit for the modern fan is the jersey. And there was controversy recently when Celtic introduced a new away strip. But what do you think of it? We went along to the recent Celtic St Mirren game to find out.
I think it's beautiful. it's dead different and all that.
Just doesn't look like Celtic at all. Just like the colours, nice change. It's a wee bit like a new Scotland strip as well with the design it.
It's not the boys without the hoops. No, sorry.
I look at in the paper, it wasn't very nice, but you see it close up, it's nice.
It's quite smart. I never liked it at first. When I seen Bobby Murdoch wearing it, but that's no surprise with him wearing it. No, that's quite smart.
Right. Well, it's a bit radical, but I'll go with it.
No, it's quite good, and I like the way the triangle goes in it, and it's a good design. It's alright, it's not bad.
We're a bit old, you see, so old people find change is different. The young ones take to change good.
Rubbish. I don't know, it sort of grows on you a bit. It was shocking when it first came, but I think it grows on you a wee bit.
I think it's bogging. It's horrible. It's horrible.
It's very nice. Very nice indeed.
First I didn't, I thought, well, it's a bit over the top, but so it grows on you.
Oh, it's just like 40 shades of green, isn't it?
And what about the man from Umbro? Does he say yes to the new strip?
Well, I think you only need to see the number of strips that are around on the streets. Without a doubt, I would say it's the best-selling strip we've ever had. And again, not just within the UK, but internationally. The likes of Italy, the Italian market, where we're very strong as a company, we're selling a lot of Celtic product, and in fairness, a lot of that is down to the fact that the design is very radical, and people are buying it as a leisure shirt rather than just being a Celtic product. But obviously, the fact that it's a good design with the Celtic badge helps, both the club and ourselves.
One of the things I loved about watching this old VHS video back was hearing again those commentators that became so familiar as a kid growing up. Jock Brown, Jerry McNee, et al. Never thought I'd miss them, but it was refreshing to hear those old voices from the 80s and 90s again. This was at a time when Jock Brown was a commentator. He of course went on to become the general manager of Celtic, and it's interesting how the passage of time changes your perception of individuals. None more so than the following interview between Charlie Nicholas and Hugh Keevans.
Yes, I mean, I've got great memories of the club, but this room holds probably most of the funniest memories and the most excitable memories in here. It goes back to 79 really, Hugh, when I used to clean all the boots in here with some of the younger lads at that time, apprentices. We stole the jerseys for a night, took the kit away from Nearly Mocking, the 4A's wore our jerseys, and went over to the jungle and stood in the jungle, and we beat Rangers 4-2 that night to win the league. So there's a lot of history from all players, and there's a lot of memories for me.
You have such a strong affection for Celtic. Why did you ever leave the club in the first place, Charlie?
Well, it was obviously financially it became that I had to leave. It's a waste of time looking back now and saying that Celtic should offer me more or whatever. That happened. That was the state of play at the times. It's changed. It's turned round about hopefully since then. Hopefully Celtic have learned their lesson and players learn their lessons. But it was great sadness that I had to leave. But when I look back now, I think I would have had to have done it in the same circumstances again. But it was just the upbringing really from my father, my father's families. It's always been Celtic orientated, and it's like. It's just like a family to me now, Celtic.
In a red jersey with first Arsenal and then Aberdeen, how difficult did you find it to play against Celtic?
Oh, incredibly difficult. Obviously, as you know, I got a few barrackings when I first came back from some supporters, but understandable. I can understand how they felt emotionally really that night. I was cringing inside myself at times, but I had to do it. It was something I had to do for quite a few years, and just go on with it. I did it the best I could, but I don't think I ever really played well against Celtic.
Could you feel the fans willing you to do well for Celtic when you came back from Pittodrie?
Yes, I did. I was obviously out quite a lot with injury. But when I came back for Pittodrie, I think there's obviously apprehension from the supporters, because obviously I left when I was younger, and probably at that time the team was more exciting and we were successful. So to come back as an older player, slowed down, not as fit as what I was then. Yeah, I mean, they're apprehensive, so was I. But hopefully now they're starting to see Charlie playing properly for Celtic again.
In fact, some people, Charlie, think that you should retain the captaincy, which you've had since the start of the season.
No, I'll make it perfectly clear. It's not up for grabs. I'm not after it. It's Paul McStay's and it'll stay Paul McStay's.
I think we've got three versions of Charlie. You've got Charlie Mark 1, who was the young kid scoring 50 goals a season in that brilliant Celtic kit. You've got the Charlie Mark 2, who came back up in the 1990s, and you see a lot of him in this video. He had a very good season, in actual fact, scoring 25 goals. And then you've got the Charlie Mark 3, who is the pundit, and I'm not going to say divides opinion. He is largely disliked by the Celtic fans as a pundit. Someone else who has changed over the years in terms of the way that Celtic fans look at him is Sean Connery, and even 007 made an appearance in this video.
Well, yes, I'm very excited about the possibility of the match here today, and I haven't been back here for so many years. It's always, but it hasn't really coincided with my free time.
I see Kenny Dalglish here today, some of the great Celts of the past. Who would you pin as your all-time favourite Celtic player?
Well, there were so many different types of players that I liked. I liked Charlie Tully when he was here, who was, of course, more Irish than Scottish, but still a great Celtic player. And Jimmy Delaney, and Kenny. And of course, I mean, there's always been. And a wonderful player was Fernie, who would have been, I think, running around in Italy by now, I should think, had he been. I don't know what they're all doing, these guys now. I saw Dennis Law the other day on the television. He's still thrashing around, looks exactly the same. But, okay, coming up. Is Kenny Dalglish here today? No.
Kenny is here for the match, yes.
Is he? Well, look forward to seeing him. Yeah.
Finally, then, we'll let you get on with Mr. Cassidy. Your prediction, though, for the big match this afternoon?
I have no idea. We're just talking about it in there, and it doesn't matter what position either team's in, whether it's the top or the bottom of the league, or out of the cup or in the cup. It's always different. It's always a surprise result. Yeah. I just hope it's a great game. There's plenty of excitement. There always is. You know, you don't have to import anything like that for this. But
Celtic's still a bit special for you.
Oh yes, absolutely. It was a great chance, and surprise to be able to come here today, and I'm sure the game will live up to it.
So where did it all go wrong with Sean Connery? We've heard tales of Pat Nevin defecting from Celtic to Hibs. Well, Connery defected from Celtic to the dark side, and it all came down to the fact that when Fergus McCann took over, he was less accommodating than Terry Cassidy. So Sean Connery went across the city and became a guest at Ibrox of David Murray's. So Terry Cassidy, I think, seen the commercial value in having Sean Connery at Celtic Park. And what does this video say about Terry Cassidy? Well, there is a very interesting video interview of him on this tape.
Well, I think there are two parts, as there are in any other plan. One is, what do we do in the short term? And that centres around, obviously, the lack of facilities that we have in the park. For example, we make it very difficult for people to buy Celtic products. All you've got to do is try and buy something in the shop on a match day, and you get 6 people in the shop and it's packed. We make it very difficult for people to buy something to eat. And if on a good day, if you're lucky, you'll get a bovril and a pie. So in the short term, we can look at trying to do something like that, and at the moment, hundreds of thousands, perhaps even millions of pounds, which should be coming to Celtic, are going to either pirate product makers or pie people along the way, which we should have. So in the short term, we can look at things like that. In the short term on the field, we obviously have to see what can be done, particularly in the way of domestic trophies, to be won with virtually the current squad. But hand in hand, both of those things, as far as the future is concerned, have got to be planned, which includes on the field as well as off the field. And I think within weeks of coming here, it seemed to me that it was, I guess, perhaps a 2-year job to plan for the future, to lay down the foundations, and then the idea being, 2 years after that, you'd be talking about perhaps a decade of success. I think that it would not be unfair to say that Liam Brady's now arrived at the same conclusion. because here we've got sufficient talent to do reasonably well in Scotland, and potential talent in some of the younger boys to do exceptionally well, given that period of planning and of course maturity on their part, both physical and mental maturity in getting to know the game. So whilst I think a lot of the fans might be thinking to themselves things haven't changed and here we go again, they have changed an awful lot, and I think that most of the fans that certainly I talk to or speak to understand that, and their analysis of Celtic Football Club and what's gone on and what goes on is quite astounding, actually. Anybody who thinks that Celtic supporters are a bit dumb, all they've got to do is read the letters that I get, and they're amazingly accurate in summing up, the club and where we are.
Do you have a problem about Rangers? Do you think the club has a problem about Rangers?
Some people undoubtedly are, both in the support and within the building. I think that there's a danger if you're not careful, you get hung up on that and you forget what you're about. And the real answer to the rivalry between Celtic and Rangers, or Celtic and anybody else, is to be better than them. That's the only answer. People can spend so many time brooding and thinking about it that they forget to get on with the job. And I'm a big believer. I'd rather have the opposition looking over their shoulders at me than me looking over my shoulder at the opposition. What we've had is people almost being happy to have said that this great club, and I think what we've got to get across to people is that it isn't a great club, it's a once great club, and what we're about is making it a great club again.
The cynical side of me says that Terry Cassidy used an opportunity here to put his message across in the same way that the Celtic View did, and that is why Celtic supporters back then called it Pravda. But you've got to also admire the fact that he was forward thinking in launching a video magazine, the first club in Britain to do so, and of course the first club in Britain to launch a weekly magazine as well. Terry Cassidy walked into a basket case of a club. I mean, you look at the decades of mismanagement at board level, and he had a massive task on his hands. But when you watch this interview, he's talking about the commercialisation of Celtic. He obviously had lots of plans, but he had an inept boardroom behind him. He was divisive, and ultimately he failed. Although this video collection was well received initially, it only ran for 4 volumes. You could pick them up for about a tenner at the time, but it was short-lived. And I think that when you look at the tenure of Terry Cassidy, the video almost outlived him as well. But it is always good to look back on these videotapes, and I think that there is a suggestion, because it's a Celtic release, that these types of things should be available on Celtic TV. I mean, what do you think? Leave a message in the comments section. Make sure that you also subscribe to the YouTube channel, because we are going to go through this entire dead stock VHS collection, and click on the notifications bell as well for further content on ACSOM's Retro Video Club.